Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Brown History Podcast. My name is Essen, and you are listening to episode 38. Today, our guest is the ever so lovely Kunal Nayyar. You probably know him best from the very popular, very funny TV series, The Big Bang Theory. He is honestly such a cool guy, so down to earth, very lovely. I wish I knew a stronger word for down to earth. Easygoing, humble, real. Anyways, you get the idea. So before we start, if you're enjoying Brown History, the IG feed, the newsletter, and the podcast, the whole package, then please do consider being a Patreon. It takes so much time and energy to keep this running. It also costs money. Like just recently, Zoom stopped being free. Now, if you want to record more than 45 minutes or so, you have to buy their annual membership, which I'm not gonna lie, really hurts the budget. So if you can help out, just visit brownhistorypodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get this episode moving.
How are you, buddy? Is it pronounced Asun?
Essen.
Essen. Where's
Yeah.
it from?
Pakistan.
Essen. And that's the
Yeah.
Pakistani pronunciation?
Yeah. It means bahut acha.
Bahut acha.
Yeah.
That's so
Well,
funny. Never
you ever heard that one?
Essen. I grew up in Delhi, so I grew up with a lot of people from Pakistan. But Essen, I've never heard Essen.
Sometimes when you watch an old Bollywood movie, there'll be a supporting character with my name,
Really?
and it'll be like, whoa,
Are your parents from where in Pakistan are your parents from?
Karachi.
And do you have any family there still?
Yeah, a few.
Okay. Have you ever been?
I've been once back in the day. Have you?
Yeah.
You've probably never been to Pakistan, have you?
I've never been to Pakistan. My wife has been. When she was modeling, they did a show in Lahore.
That's wild.
And she said it was I'm talking like 15, 16, 17 years ago. But I know a lot of people from Pakistan, from Lahore, from Karachi. And the way they talk about it, is amazing. And I'd love to go. It just hasn't really come up. It's what the British did to us, right? They divided this beautiful place up, and now
Yeah.
it's becoming a logistical nightmare to go to this beautiful place. So
Do you think if you visited Pakistan, you'd have like issues and conflict with the government and with some people in India? Or no, not at all?
I have a British passport, so I don't think that.
No, I don't mean like bureaucracy wise. I mean like just, trolls.
No,
Or you don't care.
I don't care.
All right.
I mean, the kind of person that's going to offend is the kind of person that would be offended by anything I did, regardless of, you have to understand that if you live your life according to someone else's opinions, then what kind of jail are you going to live in, right? So I really try not to, as long as my intentions are good, I try not to care.
You should definitely then visit. It'd be pretty cool.
I have friends who live there and who say, they're apparently the Pakistani hospitality is legendary. It's legendary. So you tell me how you want to begin, or we're already begun, I guess.
We've already begun. And usually when I start an episode, I usually go back to the person's parents, the origin story. One of the weird things was when I Googled you and I tried to research you, you always came up as British actor, and then I looked deeper and it turns out that you actually were born there and you lived there for a few years and then you went back to India. So that's, to me, that was very curious. I'm like, why come all the way to England and then just go back a few years later? What happened? I hope nothing bad happened, but
no. It's a very fair question. And a good question, actually. My dad was an accountant. My mom was an interior designer. She worked at Harrods, actually. And my dad was an accountant and they were doing very well. And my brother was 5, and I believe, and I was 1, or he was 6 and I was 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it really came down to mom and dad wanting to come back home to Delhi to take care of their parents.
Oh, wow.
My dad literally said, and I come from a sort of a very large extended family, first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, fourth cousins, our family is massive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for them, they really felt that they wanted to come home and take care of not only my dadu dadi, but my nana and my nani, so my maternal and my paternal grandparents. So, and they wanted to be close to their brothers and the sisters and everyone. So that's why they came home in 80. I was born 81, so 84, I believe, was the official move.
Okay.
Back to India, which
is a tough time to go back to India politically.
Well, I think we lived in such a South Delhi bubble, I always like to call it, where yes, things were difficult, but things that was the nature. It was an accepted nature of a country that had just found its independence, where things were always kind of shifting, and there was some really difficult times. But on a day-to-day basis, when you're surrounded by so many cousins, and we were living in Kashmiri Gate, which is in Old Delhi. I remember in a small my grandfather was a dentist. Before we moved to a house, we were all together, just packed up, and those were some of the most amazing memories. I was too young, but the stories I'm told were just incredible. Those were different times. Obviously now it's different, but one thing I really loved about growing up in India, and it's not an experience I would ever give up, is every single day someone was over.
Mm-hmm.
Every single day, lunch, dinner, someone was knocking on the door, opening the fridge, or I would finish school, and on the way I'd just stop at my cousin's house. I wouldn't even go home. Like my mom would be calling like 4 or 5 of my mommies, chachis, not knowing where I was, because I would just stop at anyone's house and hang out for hours and hours and hours. So the love and the support and the coming together, you never ever felt like you were alone or isolated. Whereas I think sometimes when you're an immigrant in America or Canada or England, if you can feel isolated if you don't have that community. But
Yeah.
I didn't have that. I mean, growing up in India was the greatest gift my parents gave me.
So is America home for you now? Or do you think that because you have the privilege of going back and forth a lot, that you're okay with staying in America? But if you didn't have that luxury, like COVID, for example, I guess it's a good example, and you don't get to go back anymore, do you think you could survive in America being alone and without a community, or do you think India is always going to be home?
It's a really good question. I think deep down for me, regardless of a passport or a piece of paper that tells you who you are, in my heart, I'm Indian. I mean, India will always be home. America has given me a great opportunity, and I've been lucky, and I'm humbled by the success that I've had here in this industry. And it's been a big part of my dream to make it in Hollywood and also do Bollywood. So it wasn't just one thing. But if you really ask me where my home is where my family is, which is in India. And, my wife is from New Delhi as well. And it's hard. I've lived in the US since 99. And so I'm a little more acclimated to the culture. But I will still always feel like when the plane, I always say where home is where when the plane lands and they say, welcome to this city, you like completely just relax. And so whenever you land and they're like, welcome to New Delhi, the temperature is 45 degrees centigrade, whatever it is, I'm still, I'm like, okay. You feel there's an unspoken language in India that I live comfortably without having to explain myself all the time. And sometimes when I'm living in a country outside of my own upbringing, I feel like I have to explain the narrative of who I am, where I am from, what is, it's never like, hey, how are you? It's like, hey, how are you? Where are you from? It's always that.
Yeah.
It's fine, which is lovely. But in India, obviously, you don't necessarily have that.
I mean, I've watched a lot of interviews to research you. I've watched a lot of interviews of you. And if the talk show host is white, there's always a bit there where you have to explain something to somebody.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that you said that. So so here you are in this big community, in this big family in India, and then you decide to take the big leap and move to America for your education. And now you're in America alone.
Yeah, it wasn't so much it wasn't so much moving to America for my education. It was always a short term. It's not, I didn't.
At the time, you thought you were going to go back pretty soon.
At the time, and a lot of my friends, it was kind of that time where everyone was going to America for education.
Right.
Okay. And my school friends, and I shouldn't throw them all under the bus, but we weren't the best at studies. I was like a B student. I was like playing guitar and playing badminton. That was my main sport, and trying to just mess around. And I didn't really care about studying so much. I wanted to be an artist in some form or whatever. I didn't have the grades to get into Stephens or any of the grade schools, in Delhi. I didn't have the grades. You have to get 99% to get into any of those schools anyway. So I was like, I might as well go to America and get an education. My brother, who was the brainiac in the family, was going to a college in Portland, Oregon, called Reed College. And I had a decent SAT score, and I applied for a college in Portland, and I got in, and that was exciting. I was like, I'm going to go to America and, have a great time and enjoy my freedom. And my parents really encouraged me. They really encouraged me to go out and explore the world. And I never thought that that I would still be here 20 years later. I didn't expect that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say the difference for me was I meet a lot of people here, especially first generation Indians, whose parents escaped India. They left because they were like, there was no economic opportunity, or there was no growth, or there was nothing. And so a lot of those families left and came and built in Canada, in America, in England. That's where they built their family life for a better opportunity. But that wasn't my life. I wasn't leaving. I wasn't running away. I just thought that at that time, everyone was getting an education abroad, and I thought it would be a great experience. And then, of course, the rest is history, because I fell in love with acting, and then I got my master's in acting, and then I got Big Bang, and then here I am,
When I looked at your like education profile, you really studied acting. Like you were in it and you did workshops and you really put yourself in there. So how did you make the transition from going from business? I think it was business you were studying, or finance.
Yeah, I was studying business. Yeah.
To being an actor. And by the way, being an actor in America, not Bollywood, so the chances for you, and this was, I think, the 90s, I think it was the 90s.
Late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah.
That, there weren't that many familiar faces like there are today. So for you to actually just, jump in to that, I mean, first of all, I must commend you, because you must be really brave.
Thank you. I mean, I never felt brave. I never, it never, I guess where it's slightly different. Let me put it this way. Okay. First of all, the acting thing, I fell in love with acting. It's not like it chose me almost. Like there was nothing, once I realized it was like an out of body experience. There was nothing else I could do. I had never felt so passionate about something in my life. And I had told my parents that the reason I went and got my master's in acting is I wanted to be good at this. I know how difficult the odds are. I finished my degree in business only because I knew there's, my chances of making it up less than 1%.
Yeah.
But I never got into the industry saying, I'm Indian, I want to show off to everyone. I wore my ethnicity on my sleeve, not to show off or to break barriers. It's just, I was not confused about who I was.
Okay.
And let me explain that a little bit. I feel I'm Indian. I mean, that's not the only thing about me, but culturally, that's what I brought to the table. I knew the odds were stacked against me, but I never ever said to myself, oh, I'm not going to get this role because I'm Indian, or I'm not going to make it because I'm Indian. Or I actually thought it was a great advantage because I looked different than everyone, and it was a great opportunity. There weren't many of us at the time trying to do what we were trying to do. And I really believed I was good. I had trained. I said, I don't care what happens. I'm going to leave every audition room, whether I get the role or not. I want them to think, who is this guy? Where is he from? I want to know more about this guy. That's all I cared about. Showing up on time, being the first person to get there, being the last person to leave, being polite to everyone, being the most hardworking person in the room. I would outwork you completely. Just give me my opportunity. So I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt once like, oh, it's all against me, and how am I going to do this? And, I really got to push India and push my diversity. And I didn't want to really be the spokesperson for all of that stuff. And if you see me, I haven't really. I just wanted to be an actor, show my passion. And then, of course, what happened. But this happened to me a lot in the beginning when Big Bang got picked up. I would end up on all these panels about stereotyping and diversity, and I would often not have a great or a popular opinion because a lot of people in this country look like us, look like me, like you, but are American.
Yeah.
And that's the confusion, right? It's like they're American culturally. They have some, obviously, Indian culture within them. They're predominantly American, but they don't look it. So they're not treated as they are. In India, I'm treated as an Indian, and in America, I'm treated as an Indian. So for me, there was not
any confusion, any discrepancy.
And I understand the discrepancy, because I always said, what if I went to India, you know, and people started treating me differently over there because of, for whatever reason, right? So I really understand the confusion or the discrepancy or the wanting to be heard and seen. It just wasn't my journey. It wasn't my story. I had a very different story. I'm an immigrant here.
Mm-hmm.
Completely, I'm an immigrant. I'm not, I'm so that's why I think in the beginning, when we really talked about, people tell me all the time about Big Bang. You were so stereotyped. You were so stereotyped. I'm a kid from Delhi playing a kid from Delhi. I really don't understand how you think that that's stereotype. He's a kid from Delhi who's playing a kid from Delhi who's smart, which is a good stereotype. I mean, I don't mind playing a smart guy,
Yeah.
I think if anything, I look back and I say, okay, yes, it'll be really nice now to not see Asian males be so desexualized
Yeah.
in some of the, in some of in media now. But at the time, I thought it was great to see a kid from Delhi on television, on a primetime sitcom.
Yeah.
Why not?
What was your journey like before the Big Bang Theory when it came to auditions and acting? Like, how was that process for you? Was it depressing, or was it like you didn't really think much of it and you just kept grinding?
I got very lucky because I had a short period of
Yeah, it was short.
grinding. I mean, my grinding was my education. And then I remember after I graduated, I went straight to Washington, D.C. to do a play, and I had saved some money. And then I went to New York. I auditioned for a play in the basement of a Mac store because I didn't have a computer. And that took me to LA to do this play for $7 an hour.
Wow.
So $7 a show. $7 a show.
Wow.
I was a waiter at a raw food restaurant. And my manager, I had a manager who had signed me out of my acting showcase. So I had someone on my side, and it was, but when you're that young, I was just so full of joy and excitement, and there was no failure, I guess. There was no thing like, even auditions I didn't get, I was like, okay, on to the next one. I wasn't damaged yet, I hadn't seen enough.
That's funny, actually. That's dark. So
yeah, that's true. I also woke up in the morning. Remember, where I'm so humbled and lucky and thankful to God, the universe, or whoever, how I got so lucky, I'll never know. But whoever, if there was a designer, I'm very thankful to them because I actually wake up in the morning and I get to do what I love.
Yeah.
And then that's the dream. I mean, that's really what it means to make it, as an artist, is to do what you love and make a living. I mean, it's just I'm so humbled and I never forget it. Never. That's why I try to do and help and so many young artists, because
you're a very spiritual guy. I mean, every time I put your name up there, there's a lot of content out there that involves you and spirituality. And it's funny because, you come off, you're like a very confident, you know yourself really well kind of guy. But at the same time, there's a side of you that's where you're you have anxiety, I think, and you have these kind of, and you talk a lot about knowing yourself. Yeah. And I'm always trying to, I mean, the whole point of the Instagram page that I started was to know myself, but I started from kind of a historical context, right? And I just kept going on with that. But where does your, I mean, if you have anxiety, where is it rooted from, the panic attacks and all that? Where does that come from? Because that must come from a place where you're uncertain about certain things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Look, I mean, I think I had never experienced any of that till I was 30.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I don't know. Again, maybe I got lucky and it was my parents for sure, and my bigger supported family, grew up in a happy household. I always knew no matter what I did, I could always talk to my parents about everything. Even if I messed up, and I messed up a lot, but I really didn't feel panic until I was 30. And that was very confusing. That's what was confusing, is how, when I have, and that's, I had just started making like more money than I ever thought I ever would. I was just married to a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
When I began to feel panic, I didn't know what it was for, because I had everything.
Yeah. That's the weird part.
That's what shook me. That's when I began to feel like look at what I mean. I'm a confident guy. I have everything. How can I feel panic?
Yeah.
That was very difficult for me.
I don't know if you want to say why. I don't want to go, I
Well,
don't want
now
to
I
cross
know.
this.
At the time,
Okay.
at the time, I didn't know why. At the time, I thought, oh, it's because I'm driving on the highway and I'm claustrophobic, maybe, and there's nowhere to
Uh-huh.
stop. And I don't know. And then when I stopped, I would feel better. So then maybe I should see a therapist to get over freeway driving anxiety, like something like that. At the time, I didn't realize, that I had everything I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And what was happening to me was all of us, we live a story, right? We live our upbringing, our culture, our religion. We live a story
Okay.
that's been crafted by our parents, our culture, a thing, and that becomes us. The things we want, the things we want to desire, and all that. But that's still a story. So I was living this sort of dream story, and for the first time, I realized that story had completed.
Mm.
I had everything I wanted. And so I suddenly began to feel very uncomfortable because it was almost like I was waking up out of an illusion of the story. Like the story most people live and die chasing what they want.
Yeah.
So the story doesn't get completed and then they die.
Yeah.
And then right before they die, they realize, I've never lived. I've never known myself, right? So what was happening to me at the time, which I didn't know then, was I was driving, and suddenly I was like, wait, who am I? Like this thing came to me, like sudden, like out of body experience, like because for the first time, I had to ask myself, now what? Everything I wanted had come to fruition at a young age. And then I was like, now what? Now that I have who am I?
That is
now
fascinating.
That everything I wanted, I've had, like what is the nature of my existence now? That's what was happening at a very deep level at the time. I didn't know. That was 8 years ago, now maybe even 10 years ago. So, but that was the beginning of the spiritual journey. And you'll see oftentimes with people who have been lucky enough to achieve at a young age, a lot of them turn towards religion, spirituality, something, because you realize that the things from the outside cannot fulfill you. They just cannot. They can give you comfort, they can give you satisfaction, they can give you contentment, they can give you an ability to give back, but they can't truly fulfill you. And I think that was has been my spiritual journey, is understanding what fulfillment is for me.
That's really interesting. I always imagine what life would be like if my chase was finished. And I was thinking about it this morning, like what would happen if like I got what I wanted? What am I supposed to do then? Because this is how I define myself, by struggling.
Exactly. That's how you define yourself, by the struggle. It's very beautiful said.
And you take away the struggle, then like what do I do next? And I thought that the solution would be to struggle for something else. But how long are you going to keep doing that? And that's very interesting.
And what does it look like to live? Well, what does it also look like to just be at ease?
Feel, I don't know what that feels like.
No, I don't know what that feels like. And I think you bring up a very, very beautiful thing. You said I would try to struggle for something else.
Yeah,
because that's what defines us. We're defined by our chase, right? I mean, when I have that thing, then I'll be at ease. Or when I have that thing, then I'll be content. And we spend our whole lives like this. But it's very uncomfortable to be absolutely at ease in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Then you get used to it. But it is. And that's what was happening at the time, is that this, like you said, the struggle was like, I have nothing to struggle for. And now I'm absolutely silent and I have to look at myself. Because otherwise you're just always outside. You're always outside. You're always chasing. And then when you get it, suddenly it starts chasing you. And then there's nowhere to hide.
When you do stop chasing, a lot of times I've heard you say you need to look within. You need to know who you are. So I wanted to know, how do you know yourself? You know, if you take away everything that's around, I know it's a really hard question, but I'm just curious, how do you know yourself?
Well, it's a question you must ask yourself. You
Oh,
know, I mean, that is literally it. I mean, it's a question you must ask yourself, because no answer I give you, if I give anyone an answer like this, well, the way I know myself is to do this, to do that, to do this, to do that, then that'll be another thing your mind wants to chase. And there's no secret. To look within is to literally make it a point to look within and to
yeah.
contemplate. You know, I will say the one thing that does help is cultivating a practice of silence. It's
Mhm.
very important. And I don't even mean meditation. I mean, I just mean to literally put your phone down, to put the TV off, and to just get comfortable with just sitting.
Let's talk about your marriage.
Oh,
I've been married a year and a half. What should I expect in 10 years of our marriage?
oh
If we get
God.
that far, yeah.
You know, I never really talk about my marriage publicly,
Oh,
only because no, I mean, you'll see, I in the beginning I did because it was exciting, but predominantly, I think the only thing that you can protect is your privacy, right? There's
right.
not a lot of it left.
Okay.
Uh,
We don't have to talk
I,
about that.
I think that what has worked for us is we both allow each other absolute freedom, and that really has worked for us, because I don't think I could be in a relationship where love doesn't grant me freedom.
Hmm.
I'm just cannot be caged. It's just not in my nature, you know. So that's not always easy, obviously. But the thing that works for us is we're really good friends, really good friends. Like we really genuinely enjoy each other's company. Um, so that coupled with the amount of time we also spend apart because of our jobs and our nature of our life, it works. I never say anything is permanent. I never knew it would last 10 years. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But it's been a fun ride. And like I said, the best thing is we're friends. I mean, that has to, that has to be there.
What is it like now for you in Hollywood? You're well known now. What is it that like, the hustle and the struggle now for you?
It's a great question. I think that the biggest challenge coming off a sitcom for 12 years that's playing in people's households to this day, like 8, 9, 10 times a day
Yeah.
in households. I guess the stigma sometimes of being in a multi-camera sitcom is that you're not really an actor. You're just you go there, you do some funny expressions and you say some lines, but you're not really acting, right?
Hmm.
I think now the sort of the challenge is to be spoken about in the same circle as some of the other actors. And I don't just mean Dave or Riz, in terms of talent, because they both are very talented actors and are movie stars in their right.
Yeah.
It's also other actors. Why can't I be spoken about in the same circles as someone as an Oscar winner?
Right.
Why not? And it has less to do with sort of the accent as much as it has to do with finding the right work that showcases. Like I did a show called Criminal UK where I played a criminal,
Yeah.
and that was a great opportunity for me to show the range of what I can do. So it's also picking work that gets you in the same conversations as the people that I think I can be as good as, because I believe in myself. And also then proving to people that I am so much more than just a one trick pony. And that's the next sort of step. And I like the challenge. My goal is that when you watch something that I'm in, you're like, wait, is that the guy from Big
Mhm.
Bang? That's my goal. If I can do that, that's a pretty good life, That's a pretty good career, I think.
Fame can do a lot of funny things to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Were you immune to the effects of fame?
No, not
Largely?
no,
No?
no, 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 no. No, look, no, of course not. I think that when you first experience fame, and it's no one's fault, remember, because people begin to put things out on the platter for you.
Right.
And it's a very exciting experience. And you never want it to end, because who doesn't want to be adored? Who doesn't want to be treated specially? Who doesn't want to be treated like they're special? Everyone does. And fame has that addicting quality where wherever you go, people will pull out the red carpet for you, right?
Right.
But they're not doing it for you. They don't know anything about you. They're just doing it for the persona that you play on television or the thing that they think you are. They don't actually know anything about you. That's the hardest thing about fame to realize. A, that fame is absolutely fleeting. And B, it's not real. It's just not real, you know?
Yeah.
But if you begin to believe in its reality and you begin to expect it and you begin to cater your lifestyle to be treated a certain way, it's a very dangerous path to go down because no one can stay famous forever. No one has up till now. So I was lucky that I was on a show that wasn't Glee. It wasn't Modern Family. It wasn't, it was a very popular show, but predominantly with families.
Right.
I didn't have much privacy, but I also was kind of left alone because we were the uncool kids. And I think it kind of worked in my favor, especially. So no, I didn't. I think the beginning was a bit tricky, but
yeah. I mean, Los Angeles is a pretty interesting city to live in.
But remember one thing about us, right? Is that outside of being an actor, I have a very fulfilling life with a big family that loves me and cares for me, that I can go to when I'm in trouble, that I can speak with, that always makes fun of me. They don't care who I am. They don't treat me specially. In fact, the more famous things I do, the more they make fun of me,
Yeah.
So whether I'm in Los Angeles or I'm in London or I'm in Delhi or I'm in Mozambique, I mean, it doesn't really, it doesn't affect me so much because also remember growing up in Delhi, I've seen so much poverty and I've seen so much wealth.
Yeah.
I've seen both sides of it, not on my own. We were just, we were middle class, so very lucky to be, but I've seen both sides of the spectrum. So it's not like I can see if you come from a place where you haven't experienced much and suddenly you get to experience all these things, how that can be such an addicting feeling.
Yeah.
But growing up in India, I saw it. Both sides of it, and I think that saved me a little bit. I think that protected me. It humbled me.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever considered doing Bollywood?
Oh, absolutely.
I heard
I
heard a story that when you were in Toronto, you went on stage and danced with Salman Khan and Lily Singh.
That was not my finest moment. But look, people think Bollywood is just dancing and songs, but there's so much good content coming out of
there
India,
is
right? And even before, I mean, even if you look at some of the older movies, they were incredible. I mean, I would love to do something in India in Hindi. I'd love to do something in Hindi. That's sort of something that's on my radar. So hopefully.
I guess my last question would be, do you have any advice for people trying to make it into entertainment, into the media? Young people.
Yeah, I mean, my advice would always be the same thing I said earlier on: is work hard,
and
don't get so caught up in what's going to happen, because no one can predict anything. Don't become one of those people that gets caught up, or I didn't get that audition because I'm brown, or I didn't. Just equalize yourself. Show up on time. Be the hardest working person. Make sure you stay humble. It's very important. Be nice to everyone and go for it.
Awesome. Do you want to add anything? Do you want to talk about something?
No, that's great. I really enjoy your page. I'm a big fan of you, and I hope we can find something to do together.
Yeah, I hope so too. Let me just stop recording.